So a lot of things happen. Global political, geopolitical tensions and economic data took center stage this week, shaping market sentiments as US Iran tension escalated and the Federal Reserve decision remained in focus. Investors navigated through some volatility. Let's dive into the key market movers and developments. So it's almost kind of it's interesting to sit here and look at it and say like, the weekend was more essential, like more things, more crazy thing happened on the weekend that it made the week look like nothing happened. um like the way that I'm looking back and thinking about it this week. But when we look at this week, earlier in this week, we had the Iran and US tension, and Trump was talking about like, oh, maybe we're not gonna do anything, blah blah blah. And there were talks about him being at the G7. There were talks about de-escalation. Oil price did spike a little bit and VIX did spike a little bit, but everybody like disregarded that. And then economic data came in this week. We saw some weakness in retail sales now, and housing start is also weak, and jobless claim is also weak, which is putting a damper on market sentiment. Whereas, just the week before, consumer sentiment was strong. Now suddenly they're like, oh, consumers aren't really like, shopping retail. PPI and CPI data was doing good, was coming within expectation. Inflation looks like it's finally under control. And then Fed decision came on Wednesday, and the Fed voted to keep a hold on interest rate, and they wanted to maintain a cautious wait and see stance. And they talked about potentially having still two rate cuts on the table for 2025, which is this year, and one in 2026 and one in 2027. But I think with everything going and happening the way it did this weekend, I think that just completely threw everything out the water. Um, and here's why. When the war gets started, like when America bombed Iran, we officially joined the war. And as we officially joined the war, oil price has is spiking up, because it doesn't like we pretty much just smacked them really hard, and we just bombed three of the nuclear facilities, and we're like, oh, we demand peace now, which is obviously never going to happen. And as that happens, we'll probably see crude oil price, which is trading around right now $75. We could essentially see this go up to 100, even as high as 150s. So, which is still like a long way to go. We haven't hit that yet. But the last time we had a war from like 9/11, 2001, we saw the price spike from 134 to as high as like 187, a few years later as the war escalated. And then like in 2008, it had a huge run before it caused a huge recession where it ran to like 230 something. So I think this is a huge escalation in things. As we start spiking the oil price, it's going to cause inflation to go out of control. It's going to start squeezing European countries, and then because they're heavily dependent on oil from other countries. So, and then as Iran closed the river that or the ocean that transport the oil between them and the whole Middle East to other countries like China, Europe and whatnot, that's gonna cause a chokehold on supply. So as supply decreases while demand remains the same, that's gonna naturally increase the price. And that's gonna almost guarantee a cause of recession at this point. But that's very further down the line. That could be like another year or 6 months down the line. But eventually people will start seeing it and talking about it, and this is the beginning of it. So I think we just had a huge starting ignition here, that a lot of people don't realize. And it's also opening us up to like terrorist attacks and things too. So really crazy development over the weekend. In other stuff, like we also see like home building being weak. Lennar is a home builder and they missed the earning expectations, citing affordability challenge as key factors in weaker than expected home sales. Kroger, which is like a supermarket, they reported strong earnings. However, they they announced that they're closing like 60 plus stores. So based on the data right now, it doesn't show that the economy is doing that bad. But I think a lot of people in America knows that we are struggling. Um, as consumers, as regular people, we are probably like we know that the struggle is coming, or maybe we're already struggling because clearly like people aren't buying homes. People aren't like going out there and buying home from Lennar right now, and there are people canceling the homes that they already put down payments for. And if people are buying homes right now, man, God bless those people because they're probably making one of the worst decisions in their life, and that will probably bite them in the ass. So that's kind of what happened this week. And looking ahead, we'll continue to see how people put a spin on how this geopolitical thing will affect the oil market. But I'm pretty sure from the Wall Street perspective, I know exactly what's going to happen. And then we'll also see, you know, Fed the Fed Chair Powell testimony this week, and it's going to be interesting to see what he's going to say because they probably already said some things last week, and now things have completely changed. But I don't know if they'll have the balls to sit here and change their remark, or they will just keep to what they said last week. Which is interesting. But I guess based on how the Fed has usually operated, they only operate in past data, so they probably wouldn't make the change. We'll also see a core PCE inflation report as well, and that's also past data, so it'll probably come in line. But I think core PCE will continue to spike up as this whole oil thing cause everything else to spike up, because closing the Middle East ocean crossing strat for the oil is also going to affect Asia as well. Like Japan gets 90% of the oil from Middle East. China also gets a lot of the oil from there, and that is going to dramatically slow down China's manufacturing side. And that will naturally cause their supply to dwindle. And as their supply to dwindle and demand remains the same, prices will go up. And if prices go up, that equals inflation. And then last thing we have coming up this week is bank stress test results. So this will kind of show everybody how well the financial system is doing and how resilient they are. I don't really expect any financial system to be in trouble at the moment, but I think there is a possibility for us to see the financial system get hacked, and that could be anywhere from 1 to 6 months from now, and that could cause instability. But that's it from my thoughts and everything on my part this week. Oh, well, actually, the market forecast as well. Market forecast, I think we've been selling the last 3 days. Been steadily selling off a bit the last few days. RSI has gone to the oversold zone, not really necessary bottom yet, but that could also mean that there's weakness in the market because RSI, what RSI stands for is relative strength index. When the relative strength index gets oversold zone, you know, 80% of the time, that means we're probably going to bounce because people will find value in the market. But at a time like this, when it's oversold, that means there's not a lot of strength. It's weak, right? And it would need buyers to come in and step up to the plate and buy. But if there is continued uncertainty like we have right now, and this whole war situation gets escalated, you know, I don't think buyers would be willing to step in. In fact, I think there could be more sellers selling off here. And if more seller comes to sell here, where buyers are weak right now and fearful, that could cause more drop in the market or a bigger drop in the market. So I think this could be a pretty bearish week. unless somebody else comes in to bail the market, unless like the Fed comes in and talk really positively to bail the market. As far as dollar index goes and Bitcoin goes, I think Bitcoin will be an interesting factor to watch this week because they typically do lead the market and they've been dropping a little bit. And if they lose that $95,000 support level, we'll probably see like huge drops in crypto. And then we have fear and greed index, and that's pretty neutral right now. So that means we're at a pivotal area. We can go either direction.